Hello, friends and beautiful people. So today, it's Sunday, and we don't work on Sundays, so I am playing, and I am working on my garden planning. So I thought we would go a little deeper into the garden planning stages of getting ready for this garden season. Next month is when we're going to get started, so we need to have made sure we planned everything out. So one of the things I do is I make this, I don't know if you can see it, there you go, on an Excel spreadsheet. It's not to scale, it's not anything great, I should say, it's kind of to scale. Each little square of Excel is 1 foot. But as far as like how big the gates are and things like that, I did not do that. And what I do is I fill this in every year. So like if we start this year, I know that I have strawberries in this one, and then I have asparagus in the next one, and then I'm gonna have strawberries in the next one, the one that Hub's just built. So I'll show you. So I'm just gonna fill those in, just write the words. Now I will take last year's and remember I had blight. I had blight in the 2 of the beds, and 1 bed was pretty bad. I'm going to take a yellow highlighter on last year's sheet that I did, and I'm going to highlight that in yellow so that I know that I had blight in that bed or there was an issue in that bed. So what I do is I will, I do one of these every year. I keep them in a notebook. When I'm planning, I'm going to make sure I'm using these to rotate my crops so that I'm getting the best nutrition possible. I'm still going to supplement the beds. I'm still going to go in and make sure that I'm adding, more compost, and I'm wood ash, and there's other things that I add in to the beds. But I want to make sure that, and that's why I highlighted in bright yellow, that I am taking into account that there was a nightshade in there last year and it had blight. Because we're gonna, even though we'll probably be just about replacing the soil in there, we're gonna let her go. We're not gonna do any kind of a nightshade in there for next year. Which brings me to another point. Before I start planning for this year, I need to be real with myself about what I learned from last year. So I thought I would tell you a few of those things because you guys all know that I'm just going to be straight up and tell you what I did wrong and what I did right. No matter what I did wrong, no matter what I did right, I had a garden, I produced food, it fed my family, it was a success. And you need to look at your garden plan that way as well. I have a friend, and if you're watching and you said you're gonna, told me Friday night that you're not gonna garden this year, you're just gonna get your food from Amish country, I'm here to encourage you. I want you to try, because every time you try is a success. And that goes for anyone out there who doesn't think they have it in them. You do. We've all been there. We've all failed, and that's why I show like the one year that the Canadian thistle just went absolutely bonkers. I couldn't keep up with it. It was a hot mess out there. I showed you my weeds. I want you to know that the gardens aren't always the perfect ones you see in Pinterest, or the perfect ones that if you aren't like me and you watch the beautiful garden tours on YouTube just for inspiration, don't use that as the bar to measure your success. That being said, what did we learn this year? I knew I needed to add more soil and compost into the raised beds. They were all down pretty low, some of them as low as the ground. It was just that it had the, the box outside it that where we had made the raised bed. That's where I got the blight. You've got to get that soil up a little bit. The blight comes from, some of it comes from the splashing of the water, and you got to, keep your tomatoes pruned. And I did a pretty good job with that. I mean, some of them grew pretty quick, and, I didn't keep up quite as quickly as I normally would, but I will tell you, I think that contributed to it. So shame on me. I knew better. I got in a hurry and I paid for it. I still had some tomatoes and things, but again, we learn. If we are honest with ourselves and tell ourselves what we did wrong and don't make excuses for it. I can make excuses. I work. I have a lot of things to do. We have a farm. I have a quilt shop. Sister, there's no excuses. What are we going to do to make it better next time? So, and in that same regard, you can only count on you. I had people who committed to helping me, and I had counted on Hubs also more than what he was capable of giving me and more than they were capable of giving me. I appreciate anyone who offers to help, and I appreciate anyone who does come and spend time with me. But realistically, what was an all summer long commitment was one time. And I get it. It's not for everyone to be out there in the heat and to have to do the things. It's a lifestyle, and it has to be a chosen lifestyle. So for people who don't want to do as much as I do, there's container gardening and there's smaller gardens. For me, I am planning on feeding hungry people. It's my ministry. So I just have to be real with myself. The garden where I had the most success was the one where I was working. The in-ground garden is the one that Hubs was committed to taking care of. That's the one that had the corn, the potatoes, and the sweet potatoes. The crabgrass got so bad, we lost it all. We got a little bit of corn, not much. We ended up just tearing it out and saying, forget it. It was just a hot mess. And so I have to let that go. I have to I can't be upset with him. He was doing for other people. We have, our ministry, I said, was to feed hungry people, and sometimes that's not always food. He had to do a lot for my mama. He had to help when he thought he was done remodeling a house for some friends for my mama. There was just these little things that kept coming up, and he kept having to pull himself away to do those. And then, Macedonian neighbor, he had a lot to do for them. So and then of course our house went up on the market, and he said, I'm done. So you have to be realistic and plan for yourself and let other people plan for themselves, and just let those things go. If he decides that he wants to do the corn and the potatoes out there this year, great. If he doesn't, I've still got seed potatoes that are going in the raised bed gardens, and that'll be part of my planning process, is to figure out with him what his commitment is, and then go from there. The other thing is plant what you will eat. We had planted some things that we don't normally eat because of the commitment from some other people. We planted some things that they wanted planted, and they weren't things that are part of our diet. So those things, while we did use some of them, they took away valuable garden space that we could have used for things that more fill our needs. And again, it's just a learning process. I enjoyed watching some of those things grow and growing them, but I need to be more intentional about what is for our needs and then providing extras to others. The other thing I learned is jalapenos and garbanzo beans don't like the high tunnel. Garbanzo beans especially. I love growing garbanzos. I love making things with garbanzos. It's just that the high tunnel wasn't necessarily the place to do it. The jalapenos will grow in the high tunnel, but you're not going to get the same production rate that you do just straight out in the garden. And that's a lesson learned. The reason why that happened, and here's another thing I learned, is I need to make a list when I'm doing my seed starting. And what happened with the jalapenos was when we were starting our seeds, we started all kinds of peppers. We missed the jalapenos. I don't know how, because it's one of my favorite peppers, but we missed those. And so I started the seeds late. And because I was worried that they weren't going to get to maturity in time, I plunked them in the ground in the high tunnel. So I need to make a list when I'm starting seeds and check off that list and say, hey, did I get this started? Did I get this started? And having that garden planner that I showed you on my last garden planning video, that'll help a lot too. While it doesn't narrow down every single item, at least it will get me going. And then the new row cover I got for Mother's Day or for my birthday, that I showed you guys that I ordered. No affiliation at all. Yes, 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 yes. So we've had, I'm sure you have too, these horrible winter storms, 60 to 80 mile an hour winds, snow blowing, and I kept looking out the back windows, seeing, I don't see it, I don't see it. Oh my gosh, it must have collapsed, it must have fallen. Well, I went out and checked. Thing looks like it did during the summer. It has not moved, it has not budged, it hasn't dented, it has held up to everything. Now I will tell you, I'm going to scramble out there and make sure I take that thing down and get it in the high tunnel to protect it. But if it can last through all of that, I think I want another one. That's another thing with my garden planning I'm doing here. I'm going to, the tomato cages I showed you guys that are like triangle shaped. They're not really a cage. They're like a trellis. I'm thinking I have enough of those, even though I didn't have enough this year. I had started extra tomatoes for the people who were supposed to be helping us. And so I think that if I take, every year I was getting a few more of those. I think I need at least one more of those row cover things. So when I plan this out, I'm going to look and maybe take those funds that I had set aside for that to do for the new row covers. So here's my admission of sins. I didn't start my video with this because I don't need everyone to know I'm a sinner, but I'm a sinner. So here's what happened. I saved seeds. I've done videos on saving seeds. And then all of the sales came over the week between Christmas and New Year's. And everyone was offering discounts for this and discounts for that. And I'm also in the food industry, so I see everything that's going on with food, everything that's going on. Anyway, friends, I ordered more seeds. So I decided today I was going to organize my seeds that came in the mail, and that way I could work on my garden planning. Okay, no shame. Ready? Here's from High Mowing. Or, I'm sorry, that was Seed Savers. So what I like about Seed Savers is they're all about keeping those old heirloom seeds going. I'm a huge proponent of Seed Savers. And then here is High Mowing. I love them. Everything they do is organic. And I got quite a few from them. And then I also support M.I. Gardner. He had a sale going a little earlier in the year, and he was closing out, I think he was closing out the end of last year's seeds, and I got them all for like $1 a piece or whatever. I like to support him. He is a small business, and he's a great guy, and I think it's important to support small businesses. I'm really careful that I am not supporting a company that is part of that Monsanto nonsense, but I digress, because that'll probably get me in trouble with YouTube. I have very good success with germination rates from all of these companies. Now, I did not order anything from Baker Creek yet this year. Their germination rates have gone down a little bit. And so I'm just not ordering quite as many from them. Now I will place a token order with them, and just because even if I only order 4 or 5 packs, they're good for some seeds that you have trouble finding somewhere else. So here are some of the seeds that I saved this year. And all I have written on the top of them is what they are and this year's date. Now I did start using these little bank envelopes. These are what, probably, let's see, 2.5 by 4, 5 inches. And I did that because I have, there's some people in our group who want some seeds, and I'm making sure that I have enough for them. And these are a great size if you're sharing seeds, to just pop some in and give them to them. And then on theirs, I can actually write any tidbits of advice I have. So I will show you real quick something here. Here are some of my seeds. So I have, and all those they're from the, I don't know if they're from the dollar store. They're just the smaller ones. They're shoe boxes. I have melons and squash in one. I have saved seeds in one. Peppers, tomatoes in one. Flowers, herbs, salad. And then the two big ones you saw are for bulk seeds that I have that we get from our Amish friends or that we have saved. So I keep them, here comes the OCD in me, I keep them in alphabetical order. And when I say alphabetical order, T is tomato, P is pepper. It doesn't matter if it's Anaheim or whatever. So then when you get back to the peppers, the peas, then they're in alphabetical order. Anaheim, jalapeno, red, all the way on. So you get the point. As I'm starting seeds, I will make sure that I'm using the older seeds first. Now that is only part of the seeds that I have. But what I want to do is, this is me being a list maker and a checker offer. So when I'm planning out, I've got my companion chart of things that I can plant together. I've got my grid of what I have available to plant in. And then I have a list. And my list is, these are all the things that we want to make sure we plant this year. And that list is fluid, and that means that it's ever changing. So as we are getting in and out of the pantry over the course of the winter, Hubs is saying, did you plant such and such because, you know, we're getting low or whatever that may be. And so it gets added to the list. And then if we have something, like right now we have a ton of green beans because I planted so many extra last year. And we did give a lot away. But I don't have to plant green beans this year. But if I have room, I will still plant green beans this year. It's important to me to make sure that I have extras. So as I'm doing the planning, I start off in pencil. I start writing everything out, what I'm going to do. I do have some plans for out of the garden and that medicinal garden that I started. So I will start writing things into that grid, and maybe I have to take something off of here and move it into the medicinal garden, or maybe I need to take something out of here and move it, you know, like I'm going to plant, which I didn't do this year because, again, we didn't know if we were moving. We still don't know if we're moving. So this is all just subjective. If we decide that we're going to put the house on the market in March or April, then there goes that. We'll just take the plan and take it somewhere else and maybe have to alter it. Obviously, we won't have all the raised beds. But I am very intentional about what I plant and where. I'm taking into account everything from soil conditions, like the blight, to making sure I'm drawing in pollinators, to the companion planting that we've talked about before, to deter bad pests and attract good pests. And then I'm also doing things like the medicinal garden. So we planted that whole row of amaranth in there. I did harvest some seeds, but I left a bunch on purpose because that'll be self-sowing. A lot of those seeds will drop. That'll all come back. I won't have to sow that this year. Then a lot of those things I've got out there are going to spread and drop their own seeds. So we'll go out there in the spring. We'll see who was happy enough to restart and who wasn't. And that'll also tell me how many I have to start. So while I might not be starting 12 different kinds of tomatoes this year, if I am starting 12 different kinds of tomatoes this year, I may only be doing 6 of this, 12 of that. I'm going to be a lot more intentional and careful about how much I'm starting. And worst case scenario, I put a post out there on the local Facebook page and give some of that stuff away. So I know I've kind of rambled on, but there's a lot to it for me. And I will, I'm going to do another segment when I actually get ready to start seeds that will tell you which ones you need to soak, which ones you should avoid soaking, which ones need stratification, which ones don't need stratification. I've never been a big stratification person, but I am seeing that I need it, especially for my nasturtiums. Otherwise I just don't have any luck. So look for that video to come. And until next time, friends, be blessed and be a blessing.